Hey, it's Kellen.
And of course, A.L.
And today, you guys, we're going to educate you as always. But this educator, there's no one out there like it, because you might see her on the show Going From Broke, where she's helping the majority of Americans, it seems, get out of debt, cutting up their cards, working on their student loans. But this young lady, this millennial, she started writing poems about money when she was 6 years old. So we definitely know she was thinking money before the mimosas, which Money and Mimosa is her show, her podcast that you can check out. But everybody, welcome Danetha Doe to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kellen and A.L. And thanks so much for doing your research. That you did some digging to find that out about me writing poems at the age of 6.
I'm just a little bit of a stalker. So yeah, I was trained by the best to be able to look into people's business. So I didn't want to talk about, how the internet in one little cutoff of the blog says she's worth over $1 billion, because I didn't read the full blog and I didn't want to start a nasty rumor where all your family and friends are then asking you for a loan. But that may be true, people. So you have to check her out on DanethaDoe.com. Description is in the link is in the description box.
That is so funny. It's funny. I had a friend Google me one day and she said that article popped up and I was like, oh my gosh, clearly you didn't read the entire article. But who knows? Who knows? That's so true. I love that.
When you're popping out of airplanes and you're running around with people who are like worth multi-million dollars, yeah, hundreds of millions and billionaires, it might be true.
You never know.
Yes. But what we know is that the Wall Street Journal has said you are a financial expert. And I want just to kind of like you give a little background on that part of your life. And we're going to go deeper into your life. That's just the first part.
Absolutely. Yes. And thanks again for having me on. So as you mentioned, I started writing about money when I was a really young child. And I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so after college, I started a business. And that business was helping small business owners manage their bookkeeping. I had a background in accounting. That's what I studied in school. I studied economics, but also focused in accounting. And I thought, well, I want to start a business. I have the skill, accounting. Let me help other businesses with their finances. I focused on the beauty and fashion space because I love beauty and fashion. And it was also a niche that other accountants weren't focused on. So there wasn't a lot of competition. And so I built a business doing that. And through working with my clients, I have to give them all the credit in terms of where I'm at today, because I started off doing bookkeeping and accounting, but through working with them, I discovered the psychology of money, how our mindset and our behaviors around money are really what drives our results, not so much the tactical information that a lot of us may or may not know, but it's really our behaviors and psychology around it. And through better understanding the psychology of money, I grew a business writing about finances, whether it was how to save, how to invest, but then also working on your behaviors around money. And that has led to what I'm doing today, which is Money and Mimosas. I write an article every day. So 7 days a week, we have a new article about finances on moneyandmimosas.com. And then through that website, I was presented with the opportunity to be on the reality show Going From Broke, working with folks around their finances.
Awesome. I'm going to jump in. Just to get some clarity on Money and Mimosas, what was the inspiration behind that? Talk a little bit about the blog. I understand that you're doing live events. What's going on in that space?
Thank you so much for that question. I did skip over a part of my background when starting my business. Money and Mimosas really started out of a strong yearning of mine to create life on my own terms. I was in a pretty tough transition in terms of, maybe both of you can relate to this, where things may be going okay in your life on the surface, but just something inside doesn't feel right. And that's where I was just before starting Money and Mimosas. I had a job, a great job, working for a great company, but I just yearned to be more creative. I just wanted to write. I wanted to be able to take yoga at noon on a Thursday. I just wanted to have control over my freedom, and something as simple as taking a yoga class at noon. That's all I wanted. And so that's where Money and Mimosas, that's how it was born. I took myself out on mimosa dates where I would go to a fancy restaurant, not necessarily expensive, but a nice looking restaurant, and just expose myself to beauty, abundance. And I would treat myself to a cocktail and just write out my feelings. What did I want to create? What did I really want my life to look like? And that's where Money and Mimosas was born, was me doing some deep reflection and trying to figure out what I wanted out of my life.
Solid. Now, how are you liking the progress and the growth of the blog? How is your audience responding to the information that you share with them on a regular basis?
Yes, so Money and Mimosas started about 6 years ago, as it was a simple weekly email that I would send out called Money and Mimosas, and it was my reflections for the week and a money tip. And my audience has grown with me. It's now, that was a weekly email that I was sending. Now it's a website where there's new content every day. We now have tens of thousands of readers in 47 countries. And we also do live events, as you mentioned, A.L. We do live events, mostly in the Bay Area. Sometimes I do travel and speak as well. But our events in the Bay Area are all about creating abundance on your own terms. So it can be real estate investing, it can be money mindset, it can be how to talk to your partner about money, especially if you have different upbringings around finances. And I feel really blessed with where I'm at today. I feel at peace, which was something that I didn't know I was yearning for when I first started Money and Mimosas. But through this journey, I've really discovered what my own center is, and creating a life that revolves around that.
That's super fly. That's literally like a whole vibe. Like New York City needs that. We need that energy on this side.
Where in New York are you, A.L.?
I'm actually in Manhattan. When I first came to New York, got my footsteps in the Bronx. Went from the Bronx to Brooklyn. Now I'm in Manhattan.
Oh, very cool. My family is my mom's from Jamaica, my dad's from Liberia. My parents met in Brooklyn, and I was born in Jersey. I spent quite a bit of time on the East Coast. Yes.
Whereabouts in Jersey? I'm originally from New Jersey.
Okay, so I was born in Plainfield, and then spent some time in Scotch Plains as a young kid.
Well, okay. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we used to compete against Plainfield a lot when I ran track and field.
Oh my gosh, I'm a track runner too. Well, former in another life.
Former.
That's so awesome. We have so much in common.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll build on that. But this is your time. We're building on you. We'll get to that for sure. A question that I wanted to ask and was very curious about. At the time you spent cheerleading and then kind of transitioning to more, finance, financial literacy, financial cognizance. Take our listeners, our viewers through that process, please.
Definitely. So I was an NFL cheerleader for the Indianapolis Colts for 2 seasons. I grew up in a lot of different places. I went to high school and college in Indiana. So that's how I ended up auditioning for the Colts cheerleading squad and made it. Which is interesting because I don't have a dance background. I did not grow up taking dance classes. I am not a trained dancer. I saw the cheerleaders on TV. It was the year that the Colts beat the Bears. Sorry to any Chicago Bears fans. They beat them in the Super Bowl. And I saw the cheerleaders and thought, oh my gosh, they look like they're having so much fun. They're so pretty. I would love to audition, not thinking that I would ever make it. And I showed up to the auditions, and it was a 6-week process. Each week they cut, 330 women showed up for the auditions. And each week they would cut the participants until they got to, I think that year they took 27 women. And I kept making it each week. And it was I love my life now. That time of my life was also a lot of fun. I had so many awesome friendships, and I was learning how to dance. And of course, performing on the field was incredible as well. And I like to say that experience as an NFL cheerleader, especially the audition process, is a lot like being an entrepreneur and building financial freedom, because I didn't have any experience as a dancer, but I put myself out there, which is what you and I do every single day in terms of building our brand, building our businesses, because we don't have a blueprint. This isn't something that you can just read a book and check off the list. You actually have to put yourself out there and trust that the next step you take is going to be the best step that you take. And if it's not, you trust yourself enough to know that you'll be able to recover, pivot if you need to. And that was what the audition process was like for me. And that really helped me. I didn't know it at the time, but that really helped prepare me to be an entrepreneur, because every day we're putting our necks out there for criticism, for negative feedback, for people, like unsolicited opinions. And you just have to trust that you know what you're doing, listen to that inner voice, cultivate that relationship with your inner voice, and continue to follow that path.
Now, when you were going for cheerleading, and your background, I mean, your degree is in economics, you have a minor in Spanish and mass communication. When you were doing the cheerleading, did you get any pushback from the haters saying, you're not just a pretty girl, you are a smart girl, you don't have to do what those, bimbos on the field are doing, you don't have to do that because you have the brains? Did you get any pushback? And if you did, how did you fight through that? Because as a creative, I find a lot of people, A.L. and I are consultants and PR folks and marketers. We see that people are fighting like inside themselves, that they want to create something, but they don't have the support. So did you have support, or were people hating on you?
It's interesting. That is definitely a misconception of cheerleaders, not just cheerleaders, dancers, sometimes artists, that they're superficial, that they only care. I was just today watching a recap of the Golden Globes, for instance, and I was watching What the Fashion, the recap of everyone's attire, and listening to the designers talk about what inspired them for these clothes. And sometimes people may think, well, that's so superficial. We have an possible impending war. Why aren't you thinking about that as opposed to what people are wearing? And it's all part of living a well-designed, rich life. We have to have all of those pieces. And the misconception around cheerleaders is that, yeah, all we care about is how we look or how we look, basically. And that wasn't the case. All of the women on the squad were either full-time moms, or some of the women had PhDs, some of them were chemical engineers, some were teachers. I had just graduated from college. Everyone had a well-rounded life. And our jobs, yes, we were dancers, but we were also ambassadors for a multi-billion-dollar organization. So we would go to events, and we have to mingle with various people from all different walks of life. It could be a 5-year-old who wants to get your autograph, and they look up to you because they're doing cheer at their school and they want to be like you when they grow up, to someone who runs Eli Lilly, which is this huge pharmaceutical company based in Indianapolis. And we'd have to be able to have a conversation with all different kinds of people. And so that is a misconception about dancers and cheerleaders, that we don't have brains. Many of us do. And it takes a lot of brains. I mean, you both know from PR and marketing to understand how to brand yourself and how to visually represent yourself. As far as support, thankfully, I had a lot of support. My family has always, my parents in particular, have always been, they set the intention, I learned later in life, that they set the intention that they wanted their children, there are 3 of us, to be independent thinkers. And they have always supported us in whatever direction we've wanted to take. And as I've gotten older, I've I have so much respect for that decision of theirs, because it really gave me the confidence that I needed to go out there in the world. For those, though, that may not have the support that you need, and it is important to surround yourself with people that are like-minded, or at least are open to seeing your vision and supporting you. It may be worth reassessing who's in your circle. I have, over the years, culled my inner circle, so let go of some people because they were cramping my style, to put it lightly. And but yeah, if you're in a place where that isn't an easy thing to do, so I would say watch YouTube videos like this. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have a lot of mentors that I've never met in person. I just listen to them on interviews, take notes, pretend that they're my friends. And you can cultivate that type of circle to really boost yourself up. If you have some sort of spiritual practice, that's not everyone's thing, but that could be something that gives you a sense of, deepens your resolve. Or, just journaling. That's something that really helped me with boosting my own confidence, was writing out my thoughts and getting to know myself better.
Okay. Awesome. Go ahead, A.L.
All gems right there. All gems. So I would like to ask, what was and I guess recently, what's the most intriguing interview? I know you mentioned you have a lot of mentors out there that you that inspire you. What was the last interview that I really like what this person is saying, or this person has given me some takeaways that I wasn't necessarily privy to, that I now can adopt them into my lifestyle?
Yes, I love watching and listening to interviews. I could do that honestly all day long. I think there's so much wisdom in conversation, and I'm so grateful for platforms like YouTube and podcasts. It seems silly, but that wasn't a thing when I was growing up, to have access to this, and so it's so nice. One person that I'm stalking, to take Kellen's term, or really getting to know a little bit better, is Mariah Carey. I've always been a fan of hers, always, always, always. However, this last year, my respect for her has just deepened. She just did a ton of interviews to promote her Christmas album, her famous Christmas song that's finally getting the huge recognition it should have gotten. And she did an interview, and I'm blanking on the gentleman's name who hosts the interview, but I can send the link to you both later. It's an hour-long interview. It was done in New York, where she's originally from. And she talks about how she was able to build longevity in her career. And that's where I'm at right now in terms of what my vision for my career is, really leaving a lasting legacy. I'm not here to, being famous is great. I see it as a tool. There was a time in my life where that was all I was going for. And now it's about really creating a body of work that I can be proud of. And she really spoke to that, how she was the first, from my understanding and what she said, the first R&B artist to bring hip hop artists on her album. And that move was something that we now think, oh, well, of course, that makes total sense because all artists do that these days. But back in the early 90s, mid 90s, that was not that was a move that was frowned upon by the major labels. And she took a risk. And the reason why she took that risk was solely because she loved the music. She really took action based upon what she loved. And that was my biggest takeaway from that particular interview, and a number of interviews that I listened of hers, was she just tuned into what she liked. And in order to do that, though, she really had to know herself and to trust herself. So there was a process to her getting to that place where she felt comfortable taking those steps. But at the end of the day, it was just listening to her heart and following that. And that's what I'm trying to embody this year.
Well, that means you might have some goon in you like her, because that's why she had ODB in them, because she would, the rappers tell these stories now, and how she was really hanging out with the rappers, and that she has some goon, some thug in her. So we might see you, could we see you with an album? I mean, you have a perfect name either for ministry or music. So, it's like the Creflo Dollar thing. Like, did she create that name, or, was it blessed upon her, but for her and her family? But yeah, talk about, the Mariah Carey. Since you're talking about Mariah Carey, do you see yourself being that like nice angel in the spotlight, but behind the scenes, like you are maybe hanging around the least of these, whether it's for, you like just kicking back at the speakeasy, which there's not really one of those in the Bay Area, but talk about your personal, when you do kick back, where can we find you?
That's so funny. Mariah Carey is definitely a thug. I mean, that comes out in her interviews. You could see that. For me, how do I describe myself? I'm super chill. I mean, I love the finer things in life. I love elegance. I love luxury. I definitely love to be surrounded by beauty. And at the same time, I think I'm also pretty laid back. So you would find me, I'm probably similar. Mariah Carey, Mariah Carey likes that all the time from what I can gather from her interviews. I don't know her personally. I would say from interviews, who I'm most like is probably Aaliyah. She was someone that didn't go out that much at night. I'm a lot like that. I love day parties. I love brunch. I love hanging out with friends while the sun's out. And then once nighttime comes, I'm at home with a fire. If it's the wintertime like it is now, with my fiance, either reading a book, watching a movie. We love to talk about what's going on in the world together. That's really who I am. I'm a chill, just laid back, put on my sweats type of person at home at night.
I'm jumping in, definitely jumping in. So with everything that you have going on, home life, family life, how do you balance everything?
Yes, it's interesting. I was just meditating on that this morning. Balance is a word that hasn't ever resonated with me. And this morning, the word came to me that I am about center. I just want to be centered. And there can be a hurricane going on, literally or figuratively, and I just want to find the stillness within myself. And how I do that, I have a lot of tools in my tool chest, if you will. I've done years of therapy. I continue to do that. I do a lot of energy healing. And depending upon what I need that day, that's what I'll pull out. So my mornings are pretty ritualized. I found for myself that doing the same things every morning is what I need to step into the day with grace and ease and a clear head. So that for me is going to the gym. I drink lemon water first thing in the morning. And then I do a short yoga session at home before I start my day. The other things that I'll do sometimes at night, it means drinking a couple of glasses of wine or a Manhattan if the day calls for that. It really depends. Sometimes it's meditating. Sometimes it's seeing my energy healer. But that's how I find my center with everything that I have going on, or just, things can come up even if there's not a lot happening that can kind of throw you off kilter. So I pull out the different tools I need depending upon the day.
I dig that. Now, in terms of energy healing, is that crystals, or is that sage? Is that Reiki? Those sort of things?
Yeah, so it depends. I do have sage. I do have incense. I do have crystals. I'm also very much into African spirituality, which doesn't use necessarily those tools. So I'll work with my ancestors. I have a shrine. My ancestors meaning family members that have passed on that I connect with. And yeah, so I have a process around that type of connection. And that's also within the last year has been a huge priority of mine to reconnect with my actual roots. Nothing wrong with other forms of healing or wellness, but this past year, meaning 2019, I realized that a lot of that was Western practices that I was using, white practices to be frank. And while they're great, it was almost like, I described this to my friend as it was as if I had a piece of paper in front of me and I was given a crayon to write with when I really needed a pen. And the pen for me is the African spirituality, like that. When I discovered, and I'm continuing to discover what that means for myself, like that's when things really gelled internally.
Have you, the question is, now I don't know, you don't know this because we've just met, want to let that be known for the people, but you are talking, you know how they say Mr. 305, you're talking to Mr. Africa. Now we just brought a client, an influencer back about 2 months ago, and we brought 30 people from the United States, Black Americans. And we did have one Mzungu come, and he was more than welcome to come because he didn't even know what he was coming to. But we went to Kenya, and lives were changed. We now have 3 more tours, and we're doing that with influencers. So my question to you is, have you been, since you have that Liberian background, have you been back home?
Oh my gosh, we definitely have to talk more about that, Kellen, because I want to hear about this trip and trips that you have planned. I have not been to the continent of Africa, so I know. And also interesting, or you probably already know this, Liberia was formed by freed slaves. And so I keep asking my dad, who is from Liberia, where did our family come before then? And he refuses to acknowledge the fact that we were once slaves, which is interesting. So I did find out that I am from Ghana originally, which makes a lot of sense. That's where most slaves were deported, if you will, stolen from. So I have not been to the continent, and that is my dream. It has to happen soon.
Oh. So we're going to talk, and we'll talk, you know, after we say cut, we'll talk, because that has to happen. And to be able, you know, when that happened, it didn't hit me until people started telling their testimonies. And you hear 30 testimonies of people who wanted to come and the various reasons. But Africa is so wide open for all of us, and they need a financial expert. And we've even had guest A.L. Rodney. He was from Australia, but background in Ghana. He does Forex. He's never gone back to Australia because he's made so much money. Not to say it's billions of dollars, but he's like, I've made enough where I can live here. And you've definitely, says the internet, made enough where you can build and create something. So we'll definitely talk more about that. I could go on and on, but I just wanted to throw that seed to say we have a conversation after the conversation, because as we see, this nation is crazy. You do TV, and I thank you for being so bold and honest to talk about the African spirituality, because most PR folks would tell you, don't mention that. That's crazy. You know, people won't get it. Even Black people won't get it. And they'll say, you know, you're part of this voodoo thing. I get stuff only from Black folk for my love locks. And they say, how do you run businesses with? And I'm like, it's just hair. And I said, if you read your scriptures, some of those folks had power in their hair, but they told you to cut yours. Whole nother conversation. But I love the honesty. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to highlight too that while there may be wisdom that I can share with those on the continent of Africa, there is a lot, and I know this in my bones to be true, there's a lot of wisdom that needs to be brought from Kenya, from Ghana, from other countries back to the States in terms of their approach to money. I talk a lot about scarcity versus abundant mindset. And the abundant mindset or the scarcity mindset is something that plagues the Western world, particularly the United States. And there are a lot of practices that I've only read because I haven't been to Africa that need to be infused within our culture, within our economic system, in order for everyone to be prosperous. So I am I'm so ready to be a student when I go over to Africa, because there's so much wisdom that needs to be brought over.
And that's the best way to go anywhere you go. I mean, even when you come to, the Bay Area, you learn the game. Have you been to Jamaica? And if you have, AL's going to have, because he just did a trip to Jamaica not too long ago. But have you been to Jamaica, since that's the other half?
I have been to Jamaica, and I do have family in Liberia. I still do have family in Jamaica. My uncle is still there, my mom's brother. He has a church there, and I have several cousins. Yeah, I love Jamaica. When did you go, A.L?
This probably, let's see. Maybe this been about like 3 years. Absolutely loved it. Jamaica felt like home. Like the moment I set foot on Jamaica grounds, like it just felt amazing. I had the opportunity to spend some time in August Town, spend time in the grill. Like it wasn't as a tourist. It was like as somebody that lives in Jamaica,
That's the way to go. It always surprised me when people stay at those all-inclusive resorts for their whole stay.
Right.
Like you didn't see the country.
Absolutely.
That's awesome that you're able to do that. Where are you from? I hear a little accent.
Oh no, I'm born in New Jersey. Like my folks, they're from New Jersey. Like some of the family, Ohio, like North Carolina, Virginia, that sort of thing. But yeah, born and raised here.
Okay, I heard a little bit of a Caribbean accent, so I wasn't sure. Maybe it was because you were just feeling the home vibes from Jamaica.
Oh, perhaps. Well, you know what it is too. Like because I don't consider it travel, but I'm just around so many different cultures. A lot. I live in the Heights, so it's a highly Dominican influence background. Living in Brooklyn, a lot of West Indian folks, and just being able to please excuse the ding in the background.
No.
Just being able to move around just different cultures has not only like expanded my mind, but expanded being able to network, and food and books and just conversation is just overall all enriching.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's what New York is great for. Amazing, amazing food and just a fusion of cultures.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the
Absolutely.
jury is still out on him because we don't have any history of him prior to 98. So I'm thinking like, he might be NSA or something like that. So the jury is still out. He hasn't told even me the full, background. And I told you I'm paid to, stalk and search. So
Kelly, you want to know something very interesting? When I did go to Jamaica, something that really took me aback is that I had the opportunity to stay with Sizzler on his property, and had the opportunity to meet his family. And I kid you not, his sister is a spitting image of my aunt. That you would think that they're twins. I showed his sister a picture of my aunt. And she literally grabbed her chest. She's like, that's me. That looks like me.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. So in Jamaica, do you expand? Because that whole vibe of what you said, and I can think of the Chris Rock joke because my wife and I said it 10 years ago when we would go to Jamaica because it was easy and cheap, right? And she's from Cameroon. And we couldn't get to Africa, just, life, whatever. But do you go and set up business in Jamaica? Because outside of the Palladium, which is, one of those beautiful stays and these beautiful resorts, there is a lot of growth in business. And I know that it's been colonized, but have you found yourself to be useful for the community, the real community in Jamaica, with all your knowledge and experience?
To be honest, I haven't explored business opportunities in Jamaica. I'm really focused on the Bay Area. But yeah, I'm sure there's definitely opportunities there, whether it's teaching entrepreneurship. One of my good friends is Jamaican and Guyanese, and she and her mom do an annual trip to Jamaica, and they're thinking of putting together an entrepreneurship conference. for the youth, which is something that I'm really passionate about. That was one of my first introductions to entrepreneurship, was an 8th grade class that I took. So that would be something I'd be really, really stoked on doing.
Again, that's another thing we'll talk about. I love Jamaica. But it gives you such a vibe, like some places in Africa. So it's a beautiful place where, you just can connect, whatnot. But no business yet. And the resorts would love to say, former NFL cheerleader is staying with us or is our ambassador. You can see it already. They have the whole cutout of you, and people can take pictures of you even if you're not there. So, we're talking about licensing the image, and instead of being in the cult outfit, you have your own, thing, and it say financial or something, that you can live with hundreds of people thirsting over your your image.
I love the way your mind works. Yes, so many opportunities.
Yeah, could you imagine? And I tell people this on The Entrepreneur. Could you imagine me working at your office? I've tried, but this type of brain is not welcomed at an office because you got ideas and you actually can implement them, like all those things we could do. But on your journey to entrepreneurship, was it that you had many jobs and then said, wait, hold on, this isn't working out for me? Or were you one of the lucky few that after the NFL, all of TV said, wait, you have a brain, you do this, that, we see you online, and then they just gave you, Ashton Kutcher himself came and said, hey, I'd like you on this show that I'm producing. How do you go from NFL then to being on TV and an entrepreneur?
Wow, there were so many twists and turns in my journey. I think most entrepreneurs have that path. It was definitely not an overnight success, or if it was 10 years in the making. I think that's what they say is what a real overnight success was. For me, after cheering, I actually went through a pretty tough period. So that was around 2009, which was a tough time economically for everyone. For me, I couldn't find a job. So I had this degree and I was overqualified because I had this degree. People knew that they had to pay me more money. After you graduate from college, that's the understanding. So I wasn't getting hired. I also wasn't getting hired because I didn't have any experience though. So I was looking for jobs in accounting, but here I am with this piece of paper and no practical experience, and no company was going to hire me. And so I ended up going on a site called funjobs.com, which is no longer in existence, which is so sad because it saved my life. I found a job on funjobs.com working at the Grand Canyon. I found a job where I would be a hostess at a restaurant at the Grand Canyon, and it was like $8 an hour, but they covered my housing and they covered my meals. And I thought, okay, this, at least someone's willing to hire me. And I moved to the Grand Canyon, and this was, looking back on it, it was a really tough time. I honestly felt like a failure because I had worked so hard to get this degree. I had all this drive and ambition and had nowhere to put it. And I felt like I was the failure because no one was hiring me. But looking back on it, moving to the Grand Canyon was my introduction to how beautiful it was to be in nature, and how I really didn't need that much to be happy. If I could be outside, see beautiful, breathtaking views, and just have freedom in terms of how I spent my day, that's really all I need. I love, as I mentioned, luxury and beautiful spaces, but that period in my life, I realized I don't need much more than this to be okay. And so I lived in the Grand Canyon. That was a seasonal gig that ended. And then I got another seasonal gig working at a ski resort. And I had never been to a ski resort before. I mean, I'm Jamaican and Liberian. We don't really do those things. I mean, that's a stereotype, not to make anyone upset if they do those things. My family did not. And the snow was not really where we would find our fun. And so I moved to the ski resort excited because I had never been exposed to something like this before. And it was a similar deal. I got a job working at a hotel lobby or a condo hotel. And then while working at that job, a position in the accounting department opened up. And so I thought, finally, I can use my degree. I can get some practical skills underneath my belt. I got the job, which came with benefits. It was the first time I was really making consistent, good income where I could pay for a nice apartment. I had health insurance. I really felt like I was becoming an adult, at least, what society tells you being an adult is. And so from there, that's when I really started better understanding the world of accounting and finance. And I lived there for a few years. That's where I met my fiance. We decided that while we love Mammoth, it's a really small town. It's like 2 hours away from the biggest city. So we moved to the Bay Area. And once I moved to the Bay Area, my entrepreneurial bug was bit again. I mean, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur from a really young age. I had asked my parents for business cards at the age of 8. I had known I wanted to be a business owner, but I didn't know what. And once I moved to the Bay Area, I thought, this is it. I've got actual accounting experience. I've got a degree. I can meet all of these awesome business owners, because even if someone doesn't own a business full time, they've got some sort of side hustle that they need help with. And that's how my path to entrepreneurship started. And for anyone that's listening maybe you both can speak to this too. Once I started the business, it wasn't smooth sailing after that, to answer your question, Kellen. This has not been an easy ride. It's been a lot of bumps, a lot of learnings, but it's all helped me figure out, it's all tools along the way to help me figure out the next step.
And then A.L, I'm sorry. If you can when then does it go to TV and you're an expert? Because that's a big thing. I mean, me, my wife, my girls, we watch you, and it's always my wife that sends me the beautiful women who are smart, and she's like, she needs to be on your show. And I say, thank you. Because a lot of people say, Kellen, you always have these beautiful women. So you got to blame Dr. Tina, who's an influencer of herself, because she points me to that right direction when I'm like this. So how does it go from, Grand Canyon, $8 an hour, ski resort, and then you just jump to TV and you're like giving advice and having, over $1 billion rumored?
Well, thank you, Dr. Tina, for introducing me to this opportunity. How did I get to TV? Well, I started my business, really started in 2013. 2014 is when I officially launched Money and Mimosas. So I did that show in 2018. So there was a period of 4 years of me building a clientele base, learning about finances on my own. One of the, I think, misconceptions about money experts or anyone in the financial space is that we have it all figured out financially as we're offering advice. And that is not the case, which is also, for me, it was a lesson around how to manage imposter syndrome. Because while I have information, I have some wisdom, and I had less of it then. And when I had less of it then, I still had to present myself as a professional. And so there was a whole learning, and continues to be a learning, of how to manage imposter syndrome, how to build and boost my confidence, how to be okay with being a Black woman in a space that's predominantly driven by white males. And I live in the Bay Area, which is incredibly diverse and forward thinking, but I would go to events where I was not at all respected. Nothing rude was said to me, but certainly my opinion wasn't considered valid. And so I had to work through that and really build up my own inner strength in terms of, yes, Danetha, you've got a lot to learn, and you also have a lot to give. You have a lot of wisdom to share. And so I was doing that for about 4 years before the show presented itself. And it was magic. I think a lot of this is magic. I believe in magic. And so that's how I choose to see life. And a friend who I've never met before, we connected in a Facebook group. She sent me a tweet, a direct message on Twitter. She said, hey, I'm living in LA. She's a life coach. I live in LA. And I saw this posting for a millennial money expert, and I think you would be perfect for it. And I saw it and I thought, okay, I'm someone like back to NFL cheerleading. Like, I'll just go for it. I don't care if I don't have all the experience needed. If it feels good inside, I'm going to go for it. And I didn't have all the experience for this. They wanted a reel. I didn't even know what a reel was. They wanted acting experience. They wanted all these things. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to send them my website. I'm going to do a short little video, like a 30-second video saying hi. And I sent it over. And then, of course, mimosas were involved. I was on a tour, a speaking tour and my fiance had come along with me. We were out after I had done a talk, getting mimosas. I was drinking mimosas. He was having beer. And the casting agent called me right after I sent that. I sent it that morning. He called me and said, I love what you sent over. I just want to ask you a few questions. And the rest is history after that. I went through a series of interviews. I flew out to LA to meet the producers, and they casted me for the role despite not having all the experience. And so that's how that opportunity came about.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Amazing. So here's the $25 million question. Are there any plans, with you being the star of your own show?
Oh my goodness, $25 million. That sounds nice. Perhaps, we'll see. I have lots of ideas, lots of topics that I want to tackle. So I hope that there are more shows in my future. With Going From Broke, we focused a lot on the student loan debt. I think that conversation needs to continue to happen, especially with the upcoming election. I would love to talk, have a deeper conversation around the wealth inequality within this country. There's a lot of information that I feel that I know I can share, and I would love to have a show that embodies all that. And I love the lighthearted side of money as well, whether it's celebrity business topics, what are the trends within celebrity business? I love those types of topics. So we'll see. Hopefully there's a show in the works in the future for me.
Well, I think IMBD had rumored of something new in 2019, but in the world of TV, I don't want to speak on it if it's not already, action ready to plan. TV is a big thing to us. This year I get to go to the NATPE in Miami, which all of TV, Mr. Netflix, Mrs. Hulu, all of them show up, and it's going to be a great thing this month, and hope to see everybody there, because that's where deals get, gathered. And I don't know if you're going, or if any of, if you've been invited to any of the special private events that I don't even know about, since you're already on TV. Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar with NATPE. What is that?
Well, I'll send it. You'll have the information. We're connected on LinkedIn. So that conversation after, we don't like just to get the game. We like to give it, because it's something where it's not even too late, where you may jump on it. And we could see it. And just so the audience knows, this is a young woman who's on TV giving real advice. She's not doing the Cardi B, and no disrespect to Cardi, but she's not extra. She's just how she is now. And that was an attraction for me, because you don't have to be extra. I don't like when everyone looks the same and talks the same. And a lot of TV, it's just, especially with Black women, oh man, you were supposed to have been fought episodes ago when that guy from Australia kicked you guys out of his house, and he wasn't doing the work. I don't know if you even remember him. He was totally extra himself. And
Daniel.
He did, Daniel, and he's lying. And I'm like, Dan, your co-host, I'm like, he is so calm. And I said, I know she wants to say something, but she doesn't want to come off like that woman. So she's going to tame her tongue. But yeah, talk about, did the producers ever try to push you or Dan to be more confrontational, or is it the reverse side?
My personality is very chill. It takes a lot for me my fiance may disagree. I'll give him that. But other than him, it takes a lot for me to get worked up. And that was actually something that the producers worked with me on, just because when it comes to TV, there is an element of entertainment. There is an element of extraness, if you will, in order to make it something that someone wants to watch. And so they did work with me to have a little bit more personality, maybe is the right word, but they were definitely hands off in terms of, and I appreciate this so much with it being my first time and not really knowing much about the TV industry. I've since learned that I had a really awesome experience, that they really just wanted me to be myself. And I really, really appreciated that. The producers, Joel, the main executive producer, Joel, he was the executive producer behind The Biggest Loser, which was a show about folks losing weight. So similar to Going from Broke, losing debt. And with the first show that he did, Biggest Loser, it was such a cultural moment with that show in terms of shifting the narrative around people who carry extra weight are somehow bad people. The show shone a light on the psychological side of weight gain. And that was something that he was bringing to, that we, in agreement, were bringing to the financial world. We're hoping to bring that through this show, that it's more than just overspending or running up credit cards. It doesn't make this person a bad person, but it's also not just a matter of cold turkey to just stop spending. There's a lot more to the conversation, and they were really great about allowing me to explore that with the guests. A lot of it's off camera, but some of it we did get to include in the show as well.
That's what I'm talking about. What I would like to dive into here on Diversified Game, with every guest that we do have on, we like to peel the layers back, like really get into the psychosis and the psychology of our guests. And one thing we do like to ask, with everything that you do have going on, are there any charitable causes or anything community involved that really touch your heart?
Yes, I am incredibly passionate about eradicating wealth inequality. That's a big, big task. And for me, the area that I focus on is young children. That was where I was first introduced to entrepreneurship. I took an 8th grade class that helped me write a business plan and then present it to bankers. And that's where I really learned, wow, being a business owner is a path to freedom. I can control my schedule. I just have to be passionate, and someone's going to pay me for my passions. And so I work with, in fact, next Friday, I go into a school in Hayward. Hayward is a small town just outside Oakland, similar to Oakland, though, in terms of demographics. And I'll go into classrooms next Friday. I'm there all day teaching entrepreneurship to the 9th grade class. And so those are the ways that I love to give back. Money is great too. Giving money is also amazing. But in terms of actually being in person, connecting with individuals, that's the way I love to give back.
Awesome. I know what the audience is asking now that you got into the youth. So how can you teach my baby? Don't worry, folks. We'll do a follow-up. I actually have a book series that I do called LondonandSydney.com, and it's based on my daughter's real life travels. And we write books and do things on that. That's where I see you traveling as a little girl, that 6-year-old writing the poem and thinking about money. And that could last forever until you get old enough to drink the mimosas, depending on when the first time you had one. That's a book in itself. But I see it, and we're going to push her, folks, because I hear you saying, how does she teach me? Where can I buy the course? Where can I buy the book? You'll have to stay connected, subscribed, and follow DanethaDoe.com. But do you have plans? And that will be our wrap-up question, at least for the audience. Do you have plans for a book, for coursework, anything for 2020 and beyond that they can grab right now?
I do not have plans for 2020 around releasing a book or program. That may be in the future. This year, I have a small team for my company, and our focus is creating quality content and building community. That is our number one focus, is to really own this space, which I call financial education. We're building a multimedia platform where your listeners can get this information. And once we really create community and really hear where the gaps are, then we'll use that information to perhaps, for me to perhaps write a book or to create a program. But this year, the focus is to really dial into who our readers are and what they need.
Well, folks, you've heard it. You've been blessed. You've got enough game to like, subscribe, and share it. Talk about it, and let's build, because everybody, I don't care who you are listening to this, needs help, or you want to make more money, make more businesses. Nobody has, even Bill Gates, if he's listening and saying, wow, really? Okay, maybe I need to call her. She loves Seattle. Okay, come on through. Let's do some philanthropy. You guys have got the game. Thank you so much for being a guest. We are going to chat offline, but everyone, you got the game. Y'all be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.